Hello again, welcome to Home Studies e-learning for First. Now in today's lesson we're going to look at relative clauses. So let's begin. Okay, now remember, relative clauses give us information about someone or something in the main clause of the sentence. Now remember, there are two types. There's defining relative clauses and non-defining relative clauses. So we'll look at both of these and give you plenty of examples. So first of all, defining relative clauses. So these contain essential information about the things or people they refer to. Okay, so we know which person or thing is being talked about. Look at these examples. The woman who usually campaigns outside the station is not here today. We only have one car that we drive to work in. He is the man whose son became a famous heart surgeon. Okay, so in each of these examples, the clause identifies who or what is being talked about. Now, in defining relative clauses, we use relative pronouns. And the rules are: for people, for the subject, we use who or that. For the object, we use who, that, or whom. And for possessive, we use whose. Whom is a little bit more formal than who. Now for things, we use for the subject which or that, for the object which or that again, and possessive we use whose. Okay, now let's look at some other features of defining relative clauses. Remember, no commas are used. Also, if the relative pronoun is the object of the verb in the relative clause, then it can be omitted. We can leave it out. That's the dress that I was telling you about. We don't necessarily need the that. Now let's look at this. If the relative pronoun is the subject of the verb in the relative clause, then it cannot be omitted. Let's have a look at this example. That's the postman who delivered my parcel. Okay, so here, who is the subject of the verb, so we can't leave it out. Okay, now let's look at non-defining relative clauses. Now, the relative pronouns for people are who for the subject, who and whom for the object, and whose for the possessive. And for things, it's which for the subject, which for an object, and whose for the possessive. Okay? Now, these are the other features of non-defining relative clauses. This time, commas are needed at the beginning and end of the relative clause. But commas are not needed when the clause is also the end of the sentence. Okay. Now, relative pronouns cannot be omitted in non-defining relative clauses. Let's look at some examples. My sister, who lives in Brighton, works for an airline. Okay. This morning I called the company which interviewed me last week. So non-defining relative clauses have information which isn't essential for the meaning of the sentence. We can clearly identify who or what is being talked about without the information in the relative clause. Okay, let's compare the two types of relative clauses now together. So remember, a defining relative clause gives unnecessary information. Otherwise, we don't know which person or thing is being referred to. Look at the example. The house, which was built in 1842, is worth £1.5 million. However, a non-defining relative clause gives extra information. Without this extra information, we still know what or who is being talked about. And remember the commas. The house, which was built in 1842, is worth £1.5 million. Okay? So, the key thing here is the house is worth 1.5 million. But in the defining relative clause, this essential information to identify this house is the fact that it was built in 1842. Okay, now let's have a look at relative clauses and prepositions. Now, prepositions usually come at the end of relative clauses. That's for defining and non-defining. Have a look at this example. The flat I live in is too small for two people. Now, in more formal examples, the preposition goes before whom when we're talking about people, and the preposition goes before which when we're talking about things. Okay, have a look at these examples. We're going to visit the town in which Shakespeare was born. Or the officer to whom you are referring is currently not available. So in these more formal examples, the preposition goes before whom and which. Okay, finally, let's have a look at relative adverbs. Now we're talking about where, when, and why. So remember, the first thing we need to know is that they're used after nouns. So for place, we use where, time, when, and reason, why. For example, that's the mountain where you proposed to me. Or Martin is currently in Auckland, where we were 2 years ago. Now the first sentence is a defining relative clause and the second one is a non-defining relative clause. However, we need to keep the where in these sentences. We cannot omit the where. Compare those to the next ones. I can remember the time when you cut your finger. Or I can remember the time that you cut your finger. So in this case, with when, we can either omit the when altogether, so we can say, I can remember the time you cut your finger, or we can replace it with that. I can remember the time that you cut your finger. Okay. However, with the next sentence, we have to use the when. I'm going to buy my brother a present when I get paid. So this is a non-defining relative clause. We have to keep the when. Let's have a look at some more examples. The reason why we bought the house was because we liked the location. The reason that we bought the house was because we liked the location. So in this case, these are defining relative clauses. We can omit the why or replace it with that. It would still mean the same. The reason we bought the house was because we liked the location, or we can replace it with that. The reason that we bought the house was because we liked the location. Okay, I hope this has helped you review relative clauses. We have a test now for you to practice, so good luck with that. Thank you.